Okay, we are doing another small of the so-called small or minor prophets, this time Habakkuk, which is also not a very famous one, only 3 chapters, and he belongs to the group of the minor prophets which is dated in the 7th century BCE. That means he's together with Nahum, Habakkuk and Zephaniah. They 3 form a group. And Habakkuk might be a contemporary of Jeremiah, so a much more famous prophet, having his visions and sayings at the end of the 7th century BCE, perhaps early 6th century BCE. What is interesting in Habakkuk is that he allows you to see a little bit how a prophet works. So the book starts with a complaint of the prophet that there is so much injustice in, obviously, the city, in Jerusalem, within his people. And he asks God to do something. And then he obviously had a kind of vision or an answer from God. And he saw that the Babylonians, as enemies, will come and conquer and punish the people. But in a way, he was not satisfied with this answer because he realized, oh, the Babylonians are even worse than the worst of our people. So how can God be a righteous judge if he punishes in a kind of unrighteous or injustice way? And then again, he looks for an answer. And the point is that he describes very vividly that he went out to his tower. So I will stand at my watch post and station myself on the rampart. I will keep watch to see what he will say to me and what he will answer concerning my complaint. So you see, actually, this prophet had obviously a kind of spot where he waits for God to tell him something. And this is something I really like, that this is a prophet who is not just satisfied with saying, okay, this and that, but no, I want to understand, I want to see what's behind. And even complaints, how can you do this? We know nothing at all about Habakkuk as a person from our canonical biblical texts. So he is not mentioned in any of the other canonical books, but there's a very famous story in, again, one of the apocryphal books, because there Habakkuk suddenly has a job to do, namely to visit Daniel in Babylon, and he has a very funny air travel from Jerusalem to Babylon. Shall we have a look on this?
What do you say? He has a funny what travel?
Air travel.
Air travel?
By air. Air.
He flies?
Yeah. Yeah, how? I will...
You're going to have to explain that.
Yeah. It's just we have to read it. Okay. So we have to the canonical book of Daniel. We have some later editions. There are 2 different versions of the book of Daniel. One is the version which is preserved only in Hebrew and Aramaic, which is mainly part of the Protestant Bibles. But in the Catholic Bibles and Bibles of the Orthodox tradition, which are based on the Greek Old Testament, there we have some additional stories. And one of these stories contains a nice story about Habakkuk. And the starting line is Daniel had some troubles in Babylon because he mocked one of their idols. So we have the same situation. He was sent to the lion's den for some time and he was hungry. And now it goes. They threw Daniel into the lion's den and he was there for 6 days. There were 7 lions in the den and every day they had been given 2 human bodies and 2 sheep. But now they were given nothing, so they would devour Daniel. Now the prophet Habakkuk was in Judea. He had made a stew and had broken bread into a bowl and was going into the field to take it to the reapers. But the angel of the Lord said to Habakkuk, "Take the food that you have to Babylon, to Daniel in the lion's den." Habakkuk said, "Sir, I have never seen Babylon and I know nothing about the den." Then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown of his head and carried him by his hair, With the speed of the wind he set him down in Babylon, right over the den. Then Habakkuk shouted, Daniel, Daniel, take the food that God has sent you. And then Daniel said, You have remembered me, O God, and have not forsaken those who love you. So Daniel got up and ate, and the angel of God immediately returned Habakkuk to his own place. So Habakkuk is the first and only prophet who had a real air travel. The Dead Sea Scrolls are the remnants of a huge Jewish library from roughly 200 BCE till 70 CE, which contain a lot of biblical material, but more important, a lot of non-biblical Jewish texts from the time around Jesus, which gives us a fascinating insight into the thinking, theology, and life of the Jewish people and Jewish society, roughly from 200 BCE until 70 CE. This is because we talked about the book of Habakkuk, and one of the first famous manuscripts is the so-called Habakkuk commentary, which was found in Cave 1. So these are the fragments of the Habakkuk commentary from the Qumran community. And you see at the beginning it's quite damaged, but it's easy to reconstruct because this scroll quotes the book of Habakkuk as we have it in the Bible, and then it starts Pishro, his explanation or his meaning is, and then the author of this commentary in a way gives his own explanation what this book of Habakkuk means. And it's fascinating because Habakkuk speaks about the 6th century and the Babylonian invasion, but the people in Qumran read Habakkuk in the light of the Romans. So they were able to adapt Habakkuk to their own situation, and this is in a way why biblical text became canonical text, or why this text which we now have in the Bible became Bible as we know it, because they were able to spark off meaning at different times and for different people at different places, so they had more meaning than just their original setting. And so the reconstruction is quite easy. You see it's always the first lines are preserved, then something is missing, and you have of course read from right to left always. So this is actually a photo of this Habakkuk commentary from the first cave as it was found in the cave. So this is leather, and you see it's sewed here together. You have two columns, and the column quotes the text from the book of the prophet Habakkuk.
What language is that in, Professor?
This is Hebrew, of course. So the book of Habakkuk is written in Hebrew, and the people in Qumran also wrote in Hebrew. So you have first the quotation actually from the biblical text, and then it starts with Pishro, and this is always marked here, Pishro, Pishro, and that means the explanation of this previous verse or quotation from Habakkuk means. So Pesher is the nominative form, that means the first case, and that means explanation, and so his explanation is. Very much like we today write commentaries to biblical books is, first of all, we present the translation of the biblical text, and then you start with the explanation, and this is an explanation which tries to make Habakkuk as a message and voice for their own time.
So all those years ago, people were still doing the job you guys do today?
Yes, then that's the fascinating thing, that Bible exegesis is something which started at the latest about 2,400 years before our time, and since then we have an uninterrupted flow of commenting biblical books.
When's it going to stop?
Never. This is an ongoing game, and the reason is that people are convinced that these biblical books have something to say for each generation anew, and that means we need scholars and we need a kind of engagement with these books in each generation anew, because only by this we can keep these biblical voices alive.